After I said that, Lady Homelander asked me, "Really, you would break your moral code of no killing for me?" And then I said, "Of course I would. I would do almost anything for you. I love you, darling." And then she got on top of me and she said, "Oh Desmond, I love you too." And then she made love to me again. And then the next day I heard that a train accidentally ran into an innocent woman running full speed, and this is how the original storyline started in the Boys TV series. But this time I would make sure that a train spends 40 years in prison. And then when Madeline Stillwell came to me and told me the bad news, I said, "You will put him in prison for many years because of what he did, and he will have to be replaced by another African American speedster, or you will have to hire back the other speedster again, and that's all there is to say about that." And then she said, "But sir, he's very popular, it will help our business financially." And then I spoke with her for a little while, and then I explained ways she could improve everything without a train. And then I asked Madeline Stillwell, "Do you have all the information you need?" And then she said, "Yes sir, I understand." We hire the 2 speedsters immediately. And then Homelander asked me, "So what did you talk about?" And then I said, "We are hiring 2 speedsters in the place of a train, and one of them you already know because you fired him, and I want to rehire him because trust me, it will be worth it, I promise." And then she said, "I understand." And then I said, "It will make the business more successful, darling." And then I kissed Homelander passionately, and then I asked, "Now would you like to go visit those scientists?" And then she got excited and even aroused, and she said, "Yes definitely, I would love to do that very soon." And then I smiled warmly and I said, "I will accompany you soon." And then for the murder of Huey Campbell's girlfriend and wife, a train was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and then another African American speedster was hired, and the old speedster was also rehired, and he was very happy to have his old job back. And when he heard that I was the one who rehired him, he wanted to thank me personally. I met with him and he shook my hand and he said, "I knew there was a reason, I always liked you." And then I said, "You owe me big time, kid." And then he said, "Yes sir, I won't let you down sir, I promise." And then I said, "Well Mr. Marathon, welcome back to the 7, and now I guess you can call us 8. And then I said, "Oh, and no drugs, get yourself clean, understood?" And then he said, "I will try my best." And then I said, "See that you do, because you're not the only one that's incredibly fast. Remember, I can fly very fast too. You can't outrun me, kid, I'm so fast." They also called me the Flash and Black Noir, and I see everything, and while I do tolerate drug use, I will tolerate no accidents involving innocent people, understood?" And then he said, "Yes sir." And then I said, "I don't want any mistakes." And then Madeline Stillwell told me she's here now, and then I said, "Send her in." And then Clara Vaught walked in and she said, "Hello Desmond, it's so good to see you again." And then I said, "We don't date anymore, and I haven't had sex with you in years, especially after you decided you wanted that sorry bastard soldier boy, and it was only for a little while that we were together, just a brief fling." And then she said, "It was a little more than that." And then I smiled big and I said, "You're hired, but no one can know that you were a former Nazi, and if they find out, you won't deny it, and we won't either, but what we'll say is that you changed and reformed yourself. Consider this a probationary period for you. I'm not a racist like you, but I will tolerate it on behalf of your daughter Homelander. Or didn't you know that she has your DNA inside her along with Soldier Boy's DNA?" And then she said something surprising to me, "I know that she's my daughter, and I also know that you married her, and I must say she chose very well." And then Stormfront smiled like a pervert, and then I said, "You and I are never having sex again." And then she said, "You always loved fucking me before, many times I remember, and I am also a lot tighter than most women." And I said, "You may stay here if you wish and meet your daughter later, but for now she and I have things to do." Then I remembered from my previous life of watching the final season of the Boys TV series, I remembered where Soldier Boy's brother is located, and I decided to save Soldier Boy's brother, so I teleported in front of Soldier Boy's brother with Lady Homelander, and then I said, "This is your uncle, he was a real war hero just like me, and the Vought serum turned him into this." And then I stood in front of him and I said, "I'm going to do you a favor today, Sergeant, and I'm going to make your body accept the Vought serum the way it always should have been." And then I put my hands on his chest, and then beautiful golden glow emitted from my hands, and I completely healed Soldier Boy's brother, and now he is human again.